NASA has gone on record numerous times stating that humans can't get past low Earth orbit.
NASA's next spacecraft, already being built and tested across America, will do those things and more.
This is the spacecraft that's going to take humans to explore the solar system. It's the next big step for NASA in exploration.
Called the Orion Multipurpose Crew Vehicle, or MPCV, this next-generation spacecraft will enable America to explore beyond low Earth orbit.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
And unlike the previous program, we are setting a course with specific and achievable milestones. Early in the next decade, a set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
Low Earth orbit is supposedly between 99 and 1,200 miles away. The funny thing is that they say the moon is over 200,000 miles away. How did we make it so far in the 1960s and 70s if we can't do it today?
So we're going to have Virgin Galactic joining Virgin Atlantic as a way to spend your tourism dollars if you're stupidly rich.
But the problem is, I think that's all a scam. But the problem is, I think that's all a scam. Scam. I really do. I think I just got asked about this. The point is that it's exponentially, look, to go in Earth or near Earth orbit, to go the distance between New York and Washington above the Earth, yeah, maybe private industry can do it, but it's just the laws of physics say it's just exponentially more expensive and exponentially more difficult to actually explore somewhere interesting.
Yeah.
And therefore I don't think it's ever going to be. I don't think private industry is ever.
Of shock diamonds in its wake. At 2,200 miles per hour, the aircraft becomes superheated from the friction created as the air rushes by.
And indicating Mach 3.0 at this time.
When you go Mach 3, the amount of heat that the whole airframe, everything experiences all this heat, and nothing that they have at the store works. There's no paint, no rubber, nothing. Metals, plastics, all this stuff is useless. And they just had to go through so many contortions to make every single part of the plane tolerant of these extreme temperatures.
Temperature affects everything on this airplane. The average person probably is not cognizant of that fact, but the faster you go, the harder things get.
One of the puzzles of extreme heat was never really solved.
Sealants for the fuel tanks. They never came up with a polymer that would seal the joints in the skin panels that hold the fuel in, so the blackbirds sit on the ground and weep. That seems silly. You can look, oh, these stupid guys back in the 60s didn't know what they were doing. There's still no plastic, that can get to 700F and not turn into burnt hot dog oxide.
So hey guys, Jeff here, and today I want to share with you this article that's on nasa.gov. It's about Robert Simon, aka Mr. Blue Marble. It's from about 3 years ago, and it's a little interview. They ask him a bunch of questions, and I found some of his answers rather interesting. So let's take a look. What do you do, and what is most interesting about your role here at Goddard? How do you help support Goddard's mission? His answer was, my role is to make imagery from Earth science's data. Okay, he makes images. He does not take photographs. I turn data into pictures. I look for new interesting events that NASA satellites have seen or that are hidden in the latest data to find anything interesting that shows off NASA's unique capabilities. Yeah, unique capabilities as in creating CGI Earth planets. It's not unique at all. This man is a piece of shit because this man is being used as part of the deception, and he probably doesn't even know that he's being used like a tool. Okay? He probably has no idea that the Earth is flat and that he is part of the grand deception. What is the coolest thing you've ever done as part of your job at Goddard? His answer is unbelievable. It's actually quite believable, but it's just remarkable. The last time anyone took a photograph from above low Earth orbit that showed an entire hemisphere, one side of the globe, was in 1972 during Apollo 17. NASA's Earth Observing System, EOS satellites, were designed to give a checkup of Earth's health. By 2002, we finally had enough data to make a snapshot of the entire Earth, so we did. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface with 4 months of satellite data. Okay, so this guy is admitting that there has only been one photograph taken of the entire Earth, one side of the globe, so that you see a perfect circle, since 1972. This guy made the blue marble, I believe, in 2004. 32 years went by, and they had only taken one photograph of Earth, and it was during Apollo 17, and we can prove how they faked these shots. The Apollo 17 shot is just a photograph taken of the Earth, cropped into a circle through a round window. Okay, it's not a genuine photo. This guy is admitting that they have 0 genuine photographs of the Earth. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface. Then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was integrating the surface, clouds, and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. This guy is admitting that they created a flat map and then wrapped it around a ball. This is precisely what I've been saying that they did. The globe model, the heliocentric model, is reverse engineered from the truth. And his job was to make sure that it matched people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. You know what that means? It means it doesn't matter if it's realistic. It doesn't matter if it shows a perfect sphere or that it's not a pear-shaped oblate spheroid. This wasn't about truth. This wasn't about reality. This was about matching people's brainwashed expectations of how Earth looks from space. That ball became the famous blue marble. The blue marble image that you see all the time is CGI. That is not a photograph. NASA does not try to claim it's a real photograph, but NASA has absolutely no problem with you believing it's a real photograph. And that's the biggest problem. 32 years went by and they claim to only have one real photograph of the Earth from space.
No, not one picture of the Earth. Imagine that. 2016, and we still don't have a picture of our home. Thousands of satellites supposedly orbiting the Earth. Why can't we get thousands of pictures? One shot with the whole Earth in it. Hell, we should have a channel on cable that shows the Earth rotating 24 hours a day, every day. Nope. Let's listen to NASA's very own Robert Simon talk about how we get our fake pictures of Earth.
In 1972, we saw our home in a new way. Apollo 17 astronauts snapped this picture.
It gave people the first look at their home planet as a single entity.
Last week, scientists at NASA released this. The shot is compiled from data from NASA's VEERS instrument, which orbits the Earth about every 100 minutes, taking measurements of light coming off the planet. That can be translated into ribbons of imagery like this, and then into one of these. And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most mind-expanding collections of images in human history. Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Simon made this. Simon's job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is, a composite of datasets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it was a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Those of you who think this technical difficulty was planned and think I'm scamming you, go do it for yourself. Because you're going to find the exact same thing. I got nothing to hide here. This is live on the air, okay? I'm going to zoom in on the Earth in Photoshop. Can you see the Earth? To image, adjust, levels, and I'm going to bring the levels over here. And I'm going to bring the levels up. Uh-oh. What is that? Why is there a square box around the Earth allegedly taken from the scientists on the moon in Apollo 17? And people wonder why I don't trust NASA. That's why I don't trust NASA. I mean, they're always out there saying, you know, Rob, everybody's trying to show you stuff from space and you keep rejecting it. This is why I reject it.
Since the original so-called Blue Marble image, NASA has provided the public with many more pictures and videos showing a globe Earth, touting veritable photographic proof that Pythagoras' 2,500-year-old theory was finally validated. When seen with a skeptical eye, however, professional photoanalysts have dissected several NASA images of the ball Earth and found undeniable proof of computer editing. For example, images of the Earth allegedly taken from the moon have proven to be copied and pasted in, as evidenced by rectangular cuts found in the black background around the Earth by adjusting brightness and contrast levels. If they were truly on the moon and Earth was truly a ball, there would be no need to fake such pictures. When NASA's images of the ball Earth are compared with one another, the coloration of the land and oceans and relative size of the continents are consistently so drastically different from one another as to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the pictures are all fake. NASA has many alleged photographs of the ball Earth which show several exact copy and pasted duplicate cloud patterns. Cheeky graphics artists have even placed things like faces, dragons, and the word sex into cloud patterns over various ball Earth pictures. One recent Pluto picture clearly has a picture of Disney's Pluto the dog layered into the background.
Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. This video is entirely about photo manipulation, especially photo manipulation by NASA on the Apollo mission images. Here we go. First image is Apollo 11. And here we see the moonscape. This is the moonlander flag. And a perfectly black sky. Black horizon. But is it black? Well, no, initially it was not black, but they made it black because there was something which we were not supposed to see, so they edited stuff out and edited stuff in. As you can see here. To be exact, when you look at ELC images, you see that this part, and this part belong to each other, and that the rest is a composite. This is the famous pyramid. You have seen this image a lot of lately on the internet, and or you saw this one with better contrast, this one, or even this one, but you have never seen the pyramid in better detail. So I will show you now the pyramid with AMS software, which is auto multi-layer segmentation software. It sort of makes slices of the contrast and then creates a new image of it. So then we get a better detail. This is the first one, layer 2. We can already see that there is a flat roof. Could be a bunker, could be a building of some kind. This could be a staircase. If you look at the shape, this could be a table, there is something square on it. You can see stars, which is very strange because when this would be a solid building, you wouldn't be able to see stars, right? Well, not quite, because there is the theory by Mike Barra that there are crystal buildings or glass buildings on the moon. This is the third layer, and now we see already different shapes, different contours. And the staircase already becomes very visible. The fourth layer and the fifth layer. We see the rooftop. We see something for a vertical here. This is a perfect shape for a building. Something square with something in it. A black object lying on top. And as you see inside the object, there is something very small in it, which is a different pixelization. So very interesting. And of course, the staircase. Again. See, this is not just a hill. There's more to it, a lot more to it than we were supposed to know. Okay, next image. AS1582-11217A. This is the end of the film roll, and because of that, they put sticky tape on it, and NASA says that it was damaged. But is that true? In my opinion, it is not, because when we look at this with AMS, we see this. We see that there is something underneath the image. There is something underneath the sticky tape. Different contrast layers. You see contours here. There is an object here. There's definitely something which is now hidden by the sticky tape. There's also an object here. Something floating here. And by the way, you cannot do this with normal contrast layer software. You need special software to do this. And this kind of software is used in microbiology and in science, so it's not readily available in a shop. You cannot buy it. Or you have to have a very big wallet. And here we see very interesting shapes. Okay, this one is very interesting. AS1585-11450. What's so special about this one? Well, we see the rover here, we see an astronaut, and we see a black pit and a black horizon. Nothing exciting. And when we look at the contrast, different contrast layers, we see that there is indeed a nice horizon and apparently no manipulation of any kind, and the black pit appears to be a normal pit. When we go into the higher contrast levels, we see that it is indeed a normal horizon. There is nothing strange about this picture. Let's take the second picture. Okay, here we see ELC. ELC also proves that there has been no manipulation with this image. Now it gets interesting. Again, the sky, which is black. There are some objects here, but nothing special. And we'll see a black pit. This appears to be like the pit that we just saw, but is that true? Here we see better contrast, and here high contrast. Looks exactly the same. It's not. When we look at the picture with ELC, then we suddenly see that the horizon has disappeared. Then we see that the pit is totally black. And when we look at the other signatures, we can clearly distinct that there has been manipulation. So let's go back. First image. See? No manipulation. Second image. Manipulation. And just to prove it, we have the following image. Pit. We can even distinct a couple of rocks now. Better contrast, and there they are, the rocks. So whatever they saw in the pit, we are not supposed to see. That's obvious. And this is with ELC, and ELC also proves that the pit has not been manipulated. These curved lines are a result of the reflection by sunlight. So then this is not manipulation. And again, see the stones here in the pit. So from this series of photos, just this one photo was manipulated, just to prove. The next one is the blue man. And why is it called the blue man? Well, there was a blue man right here. It is now been gone. It's now gone. NASA edited it out because this is the original picture from 10 years ago. Here we see it, the blue man. And there's also an object here. See the object? Both are missing from the new picture that's uploaded. When we look at the blue man in different contrast layers and filters, we see this. Now, isn't that interesting? What are we looking at? I don't know. And this is the best one. I recently found it, and just like to ask you, where do you think is the manipulation? It's right here, the visor. I'll show you why. We see in the middle of the visor this little white man, which appears to be the other astronaut which takes the picture. No, it's not, because when we zoom in, then we see that the astronaut is not holding a camera or any other thing, and there is something strange with the shadow. The shadow is not exactly behind the object, and the object is not round, the object is square. Or, in other words, this is a picture inside a picture. They copied a square picture inside a picture. And when we enhance it, it even becomes better visible. See? So whatever they took the photo of, it's not the astronaut. And the astronaut is not visible in the visor. It's something else. What better evidence do you need? Well, that's it. There's a lot more to come. I hope you enjoyed it, so stay tuned. Bye-bye.
When you take a closer picture of the actual moon landing, supposedly, you start to see some very startling things indeed. And the first thing you start to see, of course, and many have noted this, is the waving flag. How can there be a waving flag in a place that has no atmosphere, according to NASA and according to space, where there is no wind whatsoever? How can that be the case? How can there be a waving flag whatsoever? And if the moon landings did in fact happen, you start to notice something else that's missing from this big picture and from this equation. Can you see what's missing in the background? Not only that, but another problem with these moon landings and the evidence that they're showing us is that there is no evidence of the moon impact crater. Now, according to them, there are craters that were supposedly on the moon. Well, I don't see any craters whatsoever that impacted in this picture, in this photograph whatsoever. What's even more eerie and interesting and suspicious indeed about all of this is that during the supposed landings, there was no stars or even footage of stars shown whatsoever in the background. So one has to really wonder, how did they get to the moon and how did they even land there if there were no stars there or no footage of stars seen or pictured whatsoever? What's really going on here? And if you thought that was bad, well, it gets much worse, because NASA has also been caught using multiple backgrounds and multiple backdrops, and even the use of sets too, because as you can see in the picture in the top left hand corner, this is a picture that was taken of the supposed moon on the supposed Apollo 15 mission. Well, when you look at that and when you look at another background that was taken from them, the backgrounds seem to match identically and exactly together. Now, why would they appear to be the same background exactly, even though NASA argues and asserts that they're completely different from each other? What is really going on, and what is the bigger agenda behind NASA? Now, we're also going to talk about this from a scientific perspective too, because when you look at it, you start to see there are many problems with this indeed. Now, what you're actually looking at is the picture of the supposed moon landings, and the blue arrows that you see, they indicate many directions of the sunlight that's coming from the sun, because according to them, the sun is 93 million miles away. But anyway, the orange circle also shows the hot spot of lighting, and then the plus sign indicates the camera lens axis, but the man shadow does not seem to point the camera in that particular direction. And then if you take even a closer look, you start to see the center of lens axis and the direction of sunlight that casts over the shadow of Surveyor 3. Then you also see the direction of the sunlight casting a shadow of the photographer. And then you see that the source of the supposed sunlight is just off stage to the left. According to the shadows, as the yellow lines indicate, as you can see right here, the shadows from the faraway source like the sun, they should be parallel in the photo. However, from a close source on a stage set, the light rays would diverge as seen in this Apollo 14 photograph because the light is much closer. The shadows therefore point to the light source. So what is the problem with all this? The problem is that there's only one light source coming, and that light source is from the sun. But when you look at the pictures closely, the light rays from the sun don't seem to come from the sun whatsoever. It would be impossible for light rays from the sun to actually reach these angles at the angles that it's showing because it's a fake. We see that there were no stars whatsoever in any of the photographs or footage that was taken of the 1969 moon landings, let alone some of the other ones. We also saw the waving flag, which is impossible if they actually did land on the moon. There was also no evidence of crater impacts on the supposed moon. And then also the bigger question is, who's recording the whole thing? Because how can someone be recording when they just got to the moon? Who is recording their every move is the better question. But see, they've been telling us the truth right in front of our faces, because this was an issue that was put out from Weekly World News that says moon landing was a hoax. We never went. NASA made $30 billion movie to fool the entire world. And why they want you to think it's a joke and why they want you to think that they're making fun of this, they're actually putting the truth and telling you the truth right in front of you, because that's exactly how they do it. But now we're going to talk about how this was hoaxed, why it was hoaxed, and what is the benefit of hoaxing this and the bigger agenda behind spending billions of dollars on such a hoax and such a seemingly little lie. Because everything is not what it seems, but I'm telling you, they're putting the truth right in front of you, because this is an actual article that comes from Huffington Post, and it says, NASA shows how Photoshop is used to create stunning images of space, because that's exactly what NASA does, and they've even admitted that they use Photoshop for their pictures of space and pictures of planets and pictures of the moon as well. Is it possible that they did the same thing for the moon landings? Is it possible that it was all one great big sham to begin with? And this is exactly how. Because the picture that you're currently looking at is a beach photograph that was taken. But what if I were to tell you that you can transform this very picture that you're looking at into the setting of what looks like the moon? And you're going to see exactly how this can be done. Now we're going to take that same picture and that same image that we've already seen, and now we're going to turn it black and white, and this is what we get. Then we're going to blacken the sky using spray or paint infill to do so, and we're going to get this result. Next, we will reverse the orientation of the image so that it's flipped, so now you see it the opposite way around. And 1, 2, 3, add a picture of an astronaut dressed in a spacesuit and a picture of a rover, and this is exactly what you get, your man on the moon indeed. But it doesn't stop there, because everything you thought you knew was in fact a lie, and everything you thought was true was in fact false, because as you see in the image above, you see a desert photograph taken of Egypt, but when you look at the supposed photographs of Mars, they look exactly alike. Very interesting and suspicious indeed.
You don't see stars in the daytime on Earth, not because they're not there, but because the atmosphere is aglow with scattered light from the sun. If you take away the atmosphere, the sun will still be there, but the sky goes dark. That's what the folks get when they go to the edge of the atmosphere, and they're calling that the edge of space. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere is no longer between you and the rest of the universe, and the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. Since the moon has no atmosphere, then a daytime picture, if you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere, the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. If you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well. Even with the sun in the sky as well.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. We were never able to see stars. The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
If you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well.
Whilst
from
in
Mark
space,
Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah.
All
because
the
you
time.
can see. You can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon. The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
And we could not see stars.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
And when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the Milky
you
Way
see
galaxy.
the Magellanic.
The sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
Pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
Just the inherent beauty of it, the velvet, bottomless bucket of the universe.
In like just hanging there in a vast sea of darkness, and the most frightening darkness that you could ever imagine.
Pretty much all the time you can see the stars. From Mark Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
And the most frightening darkness that you could ever imagine.
Pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
The sky, of course, was black, but it had sort of a velvet sheen to it.
The biggest visual surprise was just how black the sky was. You have a brilliant sun, brighter than any sun you normally would see, even here in New Mexico. You have these extraordinarily high mountains. We were in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon. But then you have this black sky, a sky blacker than black, as the old Vidicon expression used to be.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
I've often tried to explain the difference between darkness, when you turn out the lights and it's dark in here, or blackness. Blackness is the endlessness of it all. It's hard to comprehend.
Astronauts moving in slow motion is another hallmark of the Apollo TV footage. There is no evidence at all of any astronaut making a leap or a jump anywhere near a height commensurate with 1/6 G possibilities. But if they were actually simulating EVAs on Earth, they would then need help with their bulky heavyweight suits and backpacks in order to achieve the visual effect of moving around easily in lunar gravity. So enter wire supports. This is a tried and tested way of relieving weight from performers or even flying an actor. Here is a sequence from one of our own productions.
Excuse me, will I need a car?
Relax, Chris. We're only making a short journey back to 1969, to the beginning of Unix.
Of course, confirmation that wires were used is in the detail. Here in this Apollo 14 footage, you can see a ping, a momentary glint. And again, run slowly. And once more. There are other examples too. This one is from Apollo 17 during the flag scene. You can see the ping at the top of the frame. In this footage from Apollo 16, we have telltale evidence of a slightly floating or dangling effect at the jump salute location. It's as if the weight is being taken off the astronaut's feet just a second or so too soon. Compare that sequence with an obvious rehearsal rig. The dangling effect is very evident. And here again, from the same mission, Apollo 16, we have an astronaut who is about to get up.
Okay, here we go.
Let me give you a hand, he says.
There goes back. There goes another back. Coming.
Look at it again. The astronaut is getting up with the wire taking the weight, relieving him of 5/6 of the Earth's gravity. A magic trick? No, just the help of a wireman. This is a slow-motion jump that would have been seen live on TV. And here it is at normal speed. The well-rehearsed, pre-recorded material was apparently slowed down by 50% when we saw it on TV. And yes, we've done the necessary work to establish that percentage.
However, in the documentary A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, You can watch official leaked NASA footage showing Apollo 11 astronauts Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins for almost an hour using transparencies and camera tricks to fake shots of a round Earth. They communicate over audio with control in Houston about how to accurately stage the shot, and someone keeps prompting them on how to effectively manipulate the camera to achieve the desired effect. First they blacked out all the windows except for a downward-facing circular one, which they aimed the camera towards from several feet away. This created the illusion of a ball-shaped Earth surrounded by the blackness of space, when in fact it was simply a round window in their dark cabin. Neil Armstrong claimed at this point to be 130,000 miles from Earth, halfway to the moon, but when camera tricks were finished, the viewer could see for themselves the astronauts were not more than a couple dozen miles above the Earth's surface in a high-altitude plane. These images showing a globular world soon became the Freemasons' most valuable tool in altering public perception about the shape of the Earth.
It is clear from these rarely seen color television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 had a high-resolution color video camera with them on their mission. Yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera. In fact, the networks complained because in addition to this, they were forced to shoot the images, second generation, off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago, and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Perhaps this was precisely what NASA and the federal government had in mind. After all, it was a first, regardless of where they were. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven. And finally, the element that seals their fate. All the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period. One gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr. and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance, in order to falsely demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. It cannot be misconstrued that this staging was done for some other reason, for the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit. Furthermore, it is apparent they are in genuine zero gravity of the actual spacecraft, necessary to convince the mass media of their authenticity, just not any further than Earth orbit, as you will see. In this never-before-seen or heard footage, not only is the radio conversation between the astronauts and Houston Control audible, there is a secondary, private conversation taking place between the crew and a third confidential party, prompting the astronauts with what to say, when to speak, and how to effectively manipulate the camera to achieve the desired misleading effect. NASA claims that the Houston transmissions were the only ones taking place with the astronauts. Listen now as Houston Control initiates a conversation with the crew, only to find them too preoccupied with the behind-the-scenes trickery to respond. Moments pass, and the oversight is picked up on by the clandestine third party, who quickly prompts them with, "Talk." Immediately, Neil Armstrong speaks.
Hello, Apollo 11. Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over. Okay, Roger, we're coming in on Earth.
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance, to demonstrate their far journey from it, and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private. Until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil. We just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get to playback, we can sort of correlate what we're so much.
Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not. What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground, outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance, with the darkened walls of the spacecraft appearing to be the blackness of space around it. That is why they wanted the interior dark and blocked out the sun from any other windows. Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the bottom and the inside of the window at the top, which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used. As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with a TV camera.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible just off beyond the Terminator or inside the shadow.
You can also notice how the astronaut operating the camera reacted to the mistake by attempting to pan away from it.
Blue gas. See white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up to see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window. Here is the slate for the 19th of July, and the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July, and then the 20th, and the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier, and the moon is some 3 days' journey away? Furthermore, if they genuinely went to the moon, why would they be faking any part of it? Why this trickery with the window? By faking being halfway to the moon, it becomes apparent that they did so because they could not even go halfway. On the 25th anniversary of the event in 1994, Neil Armstrong made a rare public appearance and held back tears as he spoke these brief cryptic remarks before the next generation of taxpayers.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you, that is, undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
But why are such important images so grainy and hard to see?
And we're getting a picture on the TV. You got a good picture, huh?
NASA claims it's the result of 1960s technology.
NASA orchestrated the hoax in a very unique way, through television. One picture, which they completely controlled, black and white, grainy, that convinced everybody we were on the moon. We had no reason to doubt it. They had complete reins over the pictures, over the sound. I mean, sad to say, it was easier than people believe.
The evidence suggesting that these images were staged.
It's absolutely unreal.
Although it appears that the astronauts are moving in the moon's gravity, which is 1/6 that of the Earth, Percy notes that when the speed of the film is doubled, the astronauts appear to be running as if in Earth's gravity. Also, when the footage of the lunar rover is doubled in speed, it looks as if it's driving here on Earth. If there is no air or wind on the moon, why is this American flag waving?
The fact that the flag flaps on the moon where there's no atmosphere means that there must have been a little blast of wind out in Area 51 where they shot this.
Could these questionable images simply be the result of astronauts struggling to plant the flag into the lunar surface? Or is there more going on than meets the eye? What about the still photography? Some say the design of the bulky spacesuits would have made it extremely difficult for the astronauts to operate their chest-mounted cameras. The man who designed these cameras is Jan Lundberg.
Once on the moon, on the lunar surface, in the dress, in the life support system, you couldn't see the camera. They couldn't bend their head that far down. They had no viewfinder, they had to aim by moving their body.
If the cameras were so difficult to manipulate, how were thousands of photos taken with crystal clarity and precise framing?
The pictures that we see that allegedly were taken on the moon are absolutely perfect.
But with closer examination, Casing says flaws begin to emerge.
Unfortunately, errors were made which are now being discovered.
Point out that lighting is a major flaw in the lunar photos. Case in point, on the moon, the astronauts' only source of light was the sun.
They had no extra lighting, no flashes or things like that.
Yet in this photograph from Apollo 14, the shadows are cast in different directions, suggesting multiple light sources.
The shadows cast by the rocks in the foreground should have been east-west, like the LEM shadow.
And in this photo from Apollo 17, again the shadows are pointing in different directions.
Outside in sunlight, shadows always run parallel with one another. So the shadows will never intersect.
It's not just the shadows that indicate the use of additional lights, but what has been photographed in the shadows. For example, here's an astronaut who descends into a huge shadow cast by the lunar module. yet his entire body is still visible. How is it that he is not shrouded in darkness? Here's the same maneuver from another Apollo mission. Again, the astronaut is brightly lit in what is obviously dark shadow. And in this picture, the sun is directly behind the astronaut. His figure should be a silhouette. Yet even the smallest characteristics of his suit are recognizable.
It seems like he's standing in the spotlight. And I can't explain that. That escapes me. Why?
And finally, in this picture with the sun behind the lunar module, the front of the craft is clearly visible. The words United States are crisp and clear. How could these backlit pictures be so detailed?
It's because there's more than one light source, which means they're not on the moon.
But NASA simply dismisses these arguments. But the questions continue. Why do some of these images shot at different times and different places appear to have identical backgrounds? These two photos seem to have the same mountain backdrop, yet the lunar module is only present in one of them. Seemingly impossible, since the LEM never moved and its base remained even after the mission.
What a ride, what a ride.
Some suggest the same artificial backdrop was used when shooting two entirely separate pictures. Background discrepancies are also apparent in the lunar video.
The best evidence are some pictorial anomalies in the photographic record of the trip to the moon. There is one for Apollo 16 where the same shot, the same hill, appears in 2 different days.
This tape was shot on what was reported to be the first of Apollo 16's lunar excursions.
But it couldn't pick a better spot.
And this video was from the next day at a different location.
That is the most beautiful sight.
NASA claims the second location was 2.5 miles away. But when one video is superimposed over the other, the locations appear identical.
It's absolutely unreal.
Even closer examination of the photos suggests evidence of doctoring. For reference, crosshairs were permanently etched into the lunar cameras, so they would have to appear on top of every image. But in this photo, a crosshair is behind a part of the lunar rover.
This situation is impossible and has to be the result of technical manipulation and doctoring of the image.
And in this photo from Apollo 11, the equipment in the foreground is covering the crosshair, not behind it. And in another from Apollo 12, the American flag is covering one crosshair and the astronaut is covering the other.